Hey guys, it's good to see you. This is Don Deal, and I'm coming to you from, of course, Nashville, Tennessee. And I want to say hello to all my friends at the Carnelian there in Walnut Creek. Looking forward to seeing you again on April the 8th at our next session together. And that's what this video is about. How do you prepare for that session? So I'm going to send you an email that'll have a few bullet points of what to prepare for the next time. We'll reflect on what we did in our last session, which means we'll talk about core values and what core values of the Carnelian do you feel like are critical at this point. I want you to choose two that you think would be really critical. I want for us as managers to decide here's two that we really want to emphasize in the next 30 days to our team and talk about that. So I'm going to ask you that question. And then there's two of the six principles that we talked about in the last session. They're the positive side of creating culture. Excuse me. And one of them has to do with office gossip. The second one has to do with communicating with transparency. Those are the two things we're going to talk about next time. I'm going to show you a video clip here, and I want you to be prepared to discuss what this means and how you would actually help someone to act correctly when it comes to office or Carnelian gossip, talking out of turn, complaining, criticizing other people. Maybe it has to do with something that everybody is being asked to do, and instead of going to the source, they're going all around talking about it and stirring up a lot of trouble. You, as a manager, have a great opportunity and a responsibility to actually speak into that with your team. And so I think this video is going to help. It's about 7 minutes. We'll watch that. I'll make some brief comments here, and that'll be your training for this next time. I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll get started with this video. Pull out your diagram of the go to the source that we used last time, and you'll see it here on this video screen. But I want you to go get that out, hold that in front of you, look at it as you watch this video so you'll be able to kind of prepare in your mind what we're talking about. All right, here we go.
I probably would say of all the tools that shape the culture of a team, what we're going to look at in this session is probably the most profound. And it's called Go to the Source. And it deals with the issue of what happens when you have an issue with one of the members of your team or your family or someone in your life. Because what we really want is we want to create a culture where when I have an issue with, say, Jeremy, which often happens, as you can imagine, that I have to choose to go, I'm going to go to the source. Jeremy is the source. He is the one that said something, did something, whatever it might be, that caused me to feel less than or whatever it might be. And I will go and go, Jeremy, look, I know you may not have meant it. I'm believing the best in you, which is what this process is. And I'm going to say, when you said that in that board meeting, it felt like you threw me under the bus a bit. It felt like you allowed me to take far more responsibility for that decision than I think was fair. So that's me going to the source with the issue I have with somebody else in my team. Now, what will almost always happen is that Jeremy will say, or the person you're talking to will say, Steve, I am so sorry. I had no idea. And they'll go, yeah, actually, looking back, I can see how you would have interpreted it that way, but that really wasn't my intent. That responsive reverse gear, I'm so sorry. I'd ask your forgiveness. I'm going to learn from this and move forward. Well, when go to the source works well, all it does is it deepens the relational trust between those two individuals. Jeremy now knows that actually I'm going to come to him with the issue before going to someone else. And he also knows when he has an issue with me, which he often does, that he has the ability to come and bring that same level of transparent challenge. However, here's the problem. Not everybody lives the value called go to the source. What we often do is we go, well, I don't want to talk to Jeremy about this or whoever it might be. I'm going to go and talk to Tracy because Tracy's very wise. I'm sure she can help me. And what I do is I go, Tracy, you're never going to guess what Jeremy did in that board meeting last week. He threw me under the bus, blah, 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 blah. Tracy has a choice. He can either be what we call a firewall or a conduit. And it depends really whether she's had to go to the source as a tool and a value in our team vocabulary. Because if she acts as a firewall, she says, Steve, hang on, stop. Have you spoken to Jeremy about this? We have a value in our team called go to the source. I'm assuming you've spoken this to him already. And if I go, not really had the time, Tracy will say, Steve, this is a key part of our culture. It's one of our foundational values. You have to go and talk to Jeremy first, and I'm going to check in to make sure you have. Or she can be what we call a conduit, which usually means, yeah, he did that to me last week as well in another meeting. And we kind of both pile on in our negativity about the person that we're talking about. But when we act as a conduit, when we don't insist on go to the source, it basically means that toxins and lies and other unhelpful gossip enters the ecosystem of a team. And teams are actually living organisms. They are either heading towards health and productivity, or they're heading towards death and decay. And when you have gossip, and when you have people chattering behind people's backs and saying nasty things and not going to the source, it breaks trust down. And in the end, everyone then becomes defensive. They don't share real expectations, and the team get consumed, usually from the inside out. So go to the source is one, I believe, of the most profound values that any Sherpa can insist on. There's no environment in my world where I don't insist on a go to the source culture. I usually teach the tool, and then I allow others to suggest whether they think it would be good or not. But ultimately, if I'm being honest, I am not prepared to lead any group of people or even be part of any team or organization that will not commit to going to the source in the way they deal with issues with one another. You either win massively here or everybody loses, which is probably why I'm more passionate in the way I'm communicating this to you on camera. Go to the source is the value that underpins the highest performing teams. So for your 100 exercise in relation to go to the source, what I want.
So I'll stop sharing now with that. There we go. So you understand what go to the source means. He described in a great way exactly how you would go about doing that, and even to some degree what you would say. We want to talk a little bit more about that when we get together on April the 8th. And what I'd like for you to do between now and then is I'd like for you to take this diagram that we have given you and sit down with somebody on your team and describe it to them. Explain what the arrows mean. Explain what the green letters, the firewall. What does that mean? Green, of course, means it's good. Why is that? Why is that good? What does it mean to be a firewall? Well, of course, that means you don't listen to it and receive it. You ask it if they've talked with the person directly, and if they have not, then you ask them to do that before you would talk any further. And the red is not positive, obviously. The conduit is the person that receives it and then spreads it to someone else and tells everybody else about it. But the person who is actually the source of the issue, they've never been talked to. They've never had a chance to come back together and to gain some agreement or even apology or understanding. So I want you to understand what your role as a manager is in helping to protect the culture. That's what we're talking about here. And one of these main things is not allowing gossip, negativity, backbiting, complaining, those kinds of things to be happening, but to address it in a positive way and say, here's how we're going to go about this. We're going to go directly to the source. And I want to encourage you to do that. And maybe as a manager, you even need at some point to say, you know what? I will meet with you. You two meet, and I'll be there as well. I'll bring the two of you together, and you can talk about it. And maybe that's what you would prefer to do. So anyway, that's the first thing we'll talk about is this go to the source. And then the second is communicating with transparency. And I want you to think about how are you communicating the core values and the things that are really important for the roles of your team. Are you meeting on a regular basis? And when is that happening? I want you to think about when you're meeting and who you're meeting with, your team, and what is it that you need to be communicating to them. That is the key. Regular meetings. What is it that is so important that you continue? It's a repeated fashion. It's whenever you meet together. And how often is that? Is that a once a month? Is it weekly, a stand-up kind of meeting? I want you to think about as a manager what is important to your team and how can you continue to communicate tasks and regulations and things that need to be done and showing appreciation to what they're doing and calling out good things that you see. And then some of these kinds of things like the core values of not only communicating clearly and making sure they understand, but also in talking about gossip. Here's a new thing that we're trying to address and show them the actual diagram, talk them through it, those kinds of things. So those are the two things we'll talk about. In addition, the other thing is you also all have taken the DISC assessment, which I appreciate you doing. We have your results back. And a friend of mine, Doug, is going to be here with us. He does training for DISC all the time. And I'm going to have him walk us through the map or the grid of all of you as a team and where you come onto that round diagram or that map and how that interacts. And it's going to be really good. So that's what we're going to do for April the 8th. And you'll be receiving the Zoom link here in the next day or two. And that's how you'll access the call and have your diagram, have some of your responses to the things that we've just talked about with you. And we'll talk about follow-up of how you've been able to put these things into practice at the Carnelian. So sometime between now and April 8th, I want you to sit down with your team or with one or two of them and explain the go to your source and see what their reaction is, what their response is, how they see that this could help you at the Carnelian and you as a manager in helping to communicate important values to your team. All right, good to see you. If you have any questions, let me know. Watch this video a couple of times and be ready to discuss how you're putting into a practice on April the 8th. Have a good day.